10:40, I'd like to call this meeting back to order. We can pick up again with our analysis.
I think we're on the lieutenants for the patrols. We can go to the comparison first, kind of see what we pulled from the other counties. Yep, lieutenant patrols. Our current one's 3542 for step one. The average is 3434. And they go both directions, so.
So, and again, I just want to verify with the titles, the lieutenant is above the sergeant?
Yes, he's the next grade up. So the same thing, we've got to look, how many years does it take you to go from a sergeant to a lieutenant? So like a 5-year sergeant goes to a lieutenant maybe? What do you think?
Minimum of 2.
Okay. So let's compare
I've got one that was an 18-year sergeant, and I've got one that was a 2-year sergeant.
So what do you think, well, first let's look at a 10-year sergeant, see what they have on our sheet there. Go over to the steps, see what kind of spread we got.
And then
here.
similar with the deputy sergeants, we have 5 lieutenant deputies?
10-year sergeant for patrols.
Lieutenant?
No, we have more
6?
than that. Should have 7. 4 on patrol, 1 in animal control, 1 in warrants.
One's an SRO.
One's an SRO.
Look at the 10-year sergeant for
10-year sergeant.
patrols. Y'all see what we have on the scale right now?
Did you say 6?
A 10.
8?
36.
6?
Patrol.
Okay, you know what?
animal
That's a
control,
10-year, right?
warrants,
Show me
SRO.
what a 5-year looks
7.
like.
7.
We'll go look at that. 5 years, 3529. Okay. Now go down to lieutenants if we use the average, which is lower than we got. See what it even does. It'd be 3390. That's what I'm not getting on why these are doing quite what they're doing. That makes sense.
So back to the comparison as far as your question, does it make sense? Can we,
No, because right now if we look at 10-year sergeant.
are we looking vertical now, right?
Well, right now, a 10-year sergeant would be 3630, and a 5-year sergeant's 3529. If we use that average, it's 3390. So even with our existing at 3542, which is a 1-year, how do we end up with a 1-year lieutenant? Do we hire? That's a vacant position, okay. So that technically would probably be a 1-year lieutenant spot right there, or actually be more than that.
I think that's driver. He just,
What did he come in as, more than that? Probably.
I mean, he was a sergeant for a few years.
Yeah.
And
What did he come in
this
as?
is probably him.
3542?
By sergeant, but yeah.
So that's a 1-year too.
For a driver.
They moved it to the 21st.
So that is a 1-year lieutenant right there. So, and he took him how many years from the sergeant? you think?
You know,
I think he was 3 to 4 range.
So 3630 or 3539 would be where he was at. Well, he didn't move up much. Well, that's the new scale. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Let's go back to those averages and look at them.
But not moving up much. Again, we have a set budget. And if we're gonna front load it and give people more money over their career by giving them more up front,
You gotta see it makes sense as well.
I understand. but ultimately, this is all gonna come out of our debt service.
Well, this is coming from
This
SRO,
year's SRO.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
Which it should be there next year, what we're understanding.
I bet good money on 3 years. It's about, I'm going with the TISA number. The TISA we get for 3 years, I bet the SRO we get for 3.
thing.
I don't think the SRO is going to go anywhere.
I hope not. Because there are big counties that be in a lot more.
Go back up to those steps and let's look at those other counties and those sergeants. That's what I'm getting really.
They work all the
Yeah.
events, like after school, build comp time, and take comp time during the summer.
And there's someone gets eaten up with the comp time?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually have to restrict the amount of comp time they can earn every week because they can't carry that. Or else
Gotcha.
we'd never be able to pay them.
He would be at a 4 years, so 1, 2, 3, he'll be at 3509. 1, currently, we're. Very little spread through there too. See how tight that is too, there's like a very little spread.
It's tight for 10 years.
The spreads are tight. That's because.
But, and you know, another piece, because there's so much data that we can't capture, is we don't even know what they've been spreading.
Well, the same thing on the lieutenants,
And it's been just a,
See, like if we look at Montgomery, we got, for 10 years sergeant in Montgomery is 3386, okay? Go see what their 1 year lieutenant looks like. Deputy lieutenant. It's more. A little bit. That's what I would think.
but even looking at market, we can't justify the other people's. They don't make sense, some
Some of the counties now. Well, part of Robertson's got this huge spread. We put Williamson in the beginning if you bring it up, and they wouldn't give it, we couldn't work their middle because they don't have a scale. And then there's different structuring, like the cities and probably structure slightly different.
I say we give more weight to the Gallatin number, and then can we look at the Hendersonville number here again?
Yeah, I'll see what Hendersonville's doing on their deputies and or doing on their lieutenants. That may be a good
Because
answer.
it should be more weight, a lot more weight on what Gallatin and Hendersonville's doing.
So Gallatin's 32. Good Lord, their lieutenant's 32, not 32, 20. What's their sergeant in that? Yeah.
Gallatin and Hendersonville both are pulling personnel files for our employees today.
That's why we need to look.
I just got a text message,
All of them?
both of them.
I mean, they pull all
No.
the employee files?
So this
Whoever
is-
applies, they come and pull their personnel
this is
file.
where
for
So they
background.
can call them off from a job?
It's not.
No, someone has to apply to go there.
Look at
Then
their
they come and
sergeant
do their
in
personnel
City
file as part of the
Gallatin.
background.
Look at the city of Gallatin sergeant or SO, and then go look at their lieutenant. It don't make sense. And then go look at their lieutenant.
It doesn't.
Let's pull their actual salary scale and look at it closer and make sure there's nothing. LT, city of Gallatin. See, it doesn't. They're almost following the same pay.
Yeah, it's like there was no
They're almost like they're
promotion.
making the same, real close. I mean, their difference ain't enough to make them want to promote. Let's pull, go to the actual, go back to this folder, let's look at their actual salary scale they sent us.
Yeah,
So
I spent
we'll
more
skip the
time
next-
looking at Rutherford's than
Yeah,
Gallatin.
go to sit sheriff's, or hit this right here, office salaries, Gallatin. Oh, lordy. Do you see it?
In the middle. What's up with that?
It cancels, if that image will show, if that camera huge, I wanted her to save my side of that, you know. It cancels, you tell her it is. Hit that top and see what that is. You know, what is that? Hit that PDF. Of course, they don't have PDF on this machine. That's it, going down Gallatin. And see if you can twist it, I think that left, that funny looking. Not quite, so hit yes, it cares, just hit it that way up there, hit okay. Hit that, hit okay.
Over to the right, will those do it? Any of those? No, that's,
But go over there to left, hit.
oh, we're getting it.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, we got it.
Okay. Now let's see if we can find their sergeants and lieutenants and see if we can.
Any way you
figure
can
out-
blow it up without making it blurry, just
Hit X on the left.
10%?
Hit that X, see where it says all tools. Right up there, yep. Okay, let's see if we can find their sergeants and lieutenants.
Shit.
Is this all employees?
Yeah.
Okay. I really want an all employee.
I keep going down there for lunch. First, let's try blowing up the description, maybe.
Can we use the find tool up at the top, find text and tool, and, oh, I don't know if it's in OCR.
Probably is. Yeah, make sure. So they got different, so they're probably all together with their police officers. So we got GT and GS versus police. I think it was like one.
Chief Water.
Those are hourly rates too. There we go.
Sergeant, lieutenant. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, let's look at those beside each other. So like, yeah, they do whatever, so they shrink back down, there's not a huge spread between those. But if you're like a 4-year, see, this is my problem, if you're a 3-year sergeant, become a lieutenant, you're actually,
There's not much incentive. Oh,
there's zero incentive, it goes down.
But do
Well,
they
then
take
they're
them
not
back?
doing that.
Do
They're
they
not
take
taking them
back to
back.
a 1 or
They
do they go to a 3?
they
go
go,
to a
they'll
three.
go to a, they won't drop them back. Not with that, the numbers don't suggest it.
You would never have any lieutenants.
No,
Yeah.
there's no way they're dropping
So
them
our
back.
numbers are skewed on those then.
Well, they're not skewed.
doing
For
it-
them, they're fine. It's just the way we're looking at it.
Well, our years of service is skewing what our 1-year mark should be then. That's why we're running into that issue on those. Some of them are doing it one way and some are doing it the other. So what's Gallatin start for?
And back again to the basis of our assumption. As we're going along, this is a huge assumption from your department, how you're going to look at it. Like, the numbers that we're coming up with, we're making this huge assumption. But if you go the way Gallatin did, and you apply our numbers, we'll
It don't
run out of
make
money.
sense. Well, if you apply our numbers, it don't make sense on the sergeants and lieutenants.
Well, it don't matter if it makes sense. I'm just saying, if we go with it and they go with another assumption, we run out of money. If they were to not go with the step back assumption that you were,
Oh,
and if they didn't go with that assumption
we left them as
and went
is
with the
right
numbers that we're
now,
talking about now,
You'd be like
we're gonna overshoot.
about 100,000 right now.
Or
Well,
at
if we
least
can
a
include
lot.
if we include the RP.
Well, got to. So I just want to be clear again, back to that assumption that we're making when we talk about these. And Gallatin does not use that assumption, apparently.
Well, no, and neither would we if we're gonna promote a sergeant to lieutenant and tell him he's gonna decrease
Exactly, you don't
pay.
wanna do
You can't
that.
So
No, he would
the
be
numbers
like,
have to make sense.
He would be a 3-year sergeant and a 3-year lieutenant if we did it that way. And we may want to look at it that way, maybe simpler way
I
to
don't
look at
know,
it.
but I'm just saying, if we take,
I know we got patrol and jailers, but the sergeants and lieutenants and going upwards, what we need to look at, how we're going to pace those. That's where we're running into comparative issues. Because we know Gallatin's not doing that right now. It doesn't make sense.
No.
And if you go to their, they have a captain under there, a
Yeah.
captain wouldn't even make sense, so it can't be. So it must be after you go to a certain level, they count those years and they may count all years. Look at a patrol to sergeant, how does it even match
I
out?
think they're counting all years. Is there anybody over there we could ask? Call a friend?
Because see, look at this, if
Call a
you look,
friend?
well, if you look at a police officer here, 31.9, 30.10, 31 over there, it comes to 2 from a, what is an 8? These have to be a straight year for services from post-certified or something, is what it has to be. It has to be. So is that what we want to go back to that assumption?
I'm not making an opinion. This is clearly an assumption that has to be made at the sheriff's office. I'm just pointing out that if you go with this type of assumption, then the numbers we're calculating
The
will
assumption
be.
has to go with the rates to make a sense, that's what I'm saying, you gotta make some assumption to make
Yeah,
sense.
so I'm just pointing it out at this point, that if down the road we switch
Mm-hmm.
and don't continue to hold, this assumption with the numbers that we're holding,
Well,
it's a whole different picture.
But I'm saying if we change his assumptions, that would change your sergeant, lieutenant pay a little bit right now too.
Mhm.
It'd get us back down to 3.3, even with our current numbers in there, other than your patrol and your jailers. That would be the only ones that change, because the rest of these are correct. wait some number of years with the county, and that's what we're going by. Which I
And-
don't
and
know
that's-
how us
I-
Galatones would make sense.
Yeah, and they just want, so that's an assumption I'm not even willing to speak to. I'm just saying that it is something from the sheriff's office that you're gonna have to decide, and that's a morale issue too. And it's also recruiting and retention.
It's a real retention problem.
Yeah, it is.
Why don't-
And it's not something we wanna make your situation worse
Well,
with.
Right now, it
but-
looks like the jailers and the patrol you got, which is your big source. Why don't we try to look and figure out if we leave it where we don't count them that other way, what's a reasonable increase from a 5-year lieutenant to a 5-year lieutenant? You know, a 5-year, just.
Counting
instead of making the posts
longevity.
keep going straight down, you know what I'm saying? If we do that, that may simplify our whole thing, go back and look at patrols that way, see if it makes, in other words, like what I'm saying is, if you're a post-certified 10-year officer and you become a sergeant, then you're a post-certified 10-year sergeant then.
You've
That's
been, and you're saying,
a
I've been with the
10-year
county.
lieutenant, a 10-year captain, a 10-year all
This
west.
is my anniversary with the county, not my anniversary to get my promotion.
Let's see what those verticals look like that way. Because right now, that's what we were running into earlier, and that's what I was saying at the beginning. They're all doing them different. We get answers different places.
That's a much simpler way for the frontline worker to understand it.
It's an apples to banana. So like if you're a post-certified and you've been post-certified for 11 years and you're a sergeant, you're 11 years post-certified sergeant. Don't matter if you're a 6-year patrol. Or if you're TCI in a jail and you're in a jail, then you're that many years into it.
And that is easier to understand,
Well, let's go
but
back
it's
and
better-
revisit everything in the jail from TCI going forward. I mean, that's what
but
we
it's
do.
better, like, the cleaner path is like, we're looking at that Rutherford one where they actually,
We don't know what they're doing there neither. It's
we don't know what they're doing
banana.
there, yeah.
Oh, so let's see what the spreads are and see if they make sense. The easiest thing, so let's start with, let's consider the jailers correct and look at the spread on the next one up, which is your sergeant. So if we do between the sergeant and the jail sergeant and the jail, let's see what they still look like. Then maybe
Jill, what, sorry?
jail sergeant to the jail, just a plain jailer.
So tell me my career path again if I'm, okay, we're back to, so I'm a correction,
Let's see what the differences are on these spreads here. So you got court officers. Correction officers are here. So we're gonna undo this, let's group everything all the way down to their sergeants, and then we can see them on the same screen. To the top of that sergeant, where's that sergeant at? There's your jail sergeant, so let's group. Data. Okay. Correction officers, correction sergeants, and the steps are the same, council we should be able to see. So if you were a correction officer at that and you got promoted there, that's how much you're gonna grab. Does that make sense now? Or does it need to go down a little bit? I don't know. So to be promoted from a jailer at, say, 10 years to promoted to a sergeant, what do you think it's worth for your duties? Are we a little high or a little low? Because if we're comparing
That's a
apples to oranges,
huge
you have to
spread.
go.
Yeah, it's a big spread.
That is a
Look at it
huge
that way.
spread.
Let's see what the
$7
spread
an hour
actually
is a
is.
lot.
Let's see
Yeah,
what the
that is a lot.
Well, let's see the percentage, because that's what's really important. So let's
I
go
don't know.
plus u divided by the one above, and let's see what we look like. See how much.
That's
something
a
makes.
$13,000.
But how much work is it? Okay. So you're getting a 28% difference from this. That may be a bit of a carry there. Let's see how much it is over here.
See, that's what I'm saying. If we can't stay with the numbers we're at, we have to assume we're staying at that assumption,
Wrong seal.
or it's all gonna,
Well, that's what I'm saying. You gotta get a normal spread. How much?
Down to a little over 15.
Okay, there,
and
there's
that's
what
not
we got.
counting the 5%.
You got an 18% spread, so, but you have no one-year
Right?
sergeant,
Is
so
it
that's kind of a moot
15,000 with
point.
retirement?
So let's look at
match? Because we'll be matching at
Well, so
15,000,
like-
5% more of that into retirement. But we're not calculating that.
Just because we got a faster climb on this one first. I think we need to move that midpoint back to get a lot of that out. That's what we're really looking at right now on that one. I don't think it's your start on your sergeants necessarily. You know, when you have a different changing percentage, as you pointed out, you're gonna have a different change amount that you get as a promotion to move between your positions. See, if those were consistent between the two, then they would move the same percentage there, but one's 1.7 and one's 8.9. So I think you need to kind of level those out to get a, so what do you think between a base, like if you were a jailer, to entice you to want to be a sergeant and stay there, what percent raise for the same year do you think you want? Or do you want to ask the mayor?
Yeah.
Because he's here. For you to be promoted from a, is it fine for us to ask somebody that works in the jail what they think a percent was to entice them?
Yeah, oh, yes.
So for instance, you're a jailer here, and this is hypothetical, you've been here for 5 years, you're trying to get promoted to sergeant, we're gonna move you 5 years to 5 years. What do you think is an enticable percentage that would make you wanna stay, or is somebody trying to move up, and just hypothetically?
I want to say for what I got this time around, it was from 2019 to around 24 is what I jumped up to when I got promoted. I would say that's, I don't know the percentages off the top of my head, but from my 20 an hour to 24, I feel like that was a pretty substantial
That's
boost.
substantial.
So about 20%.
So I'd say about 20% would be.
So if we do that 18, so really it looks
Healthy.
like that 32's off.
And now-
We did give them the same across.
Talking about these numbers, I'm remembering back to the Galton meetings that they had. When they gave raises, they gave $1 an hour to everybody. And that might be why we're seeing the numbers, because we're not looking at it in that way. They gave a straight up $1 raise per hour.
That would definitely make a difference between those.
And that's, I think that might be why we're seeing a different structure.
But if you want to get a consistent, say we say this is good, you want to get an 18% raise if you get promoted. Then all I got to do is change this midpoint to these percentages of the same, you know what I'm saying? And then it would make that 118% all the way across the board wherever you're at in the first 10 years. Do we think that's the direction we want to go? There's ways to even these up and smooth them out, but the ways, there's multiple ways.
There's lots of ways, but in the end, it's however you guys administer it.
But right now, you guys have got to determine what you think it's worth to be promoted from a floor jailer to a floor sergeant. And the only thing you got above that really is what, a lieutenant and then the administrator, which is only one administrator.
I think that we should focus on that start pay, because there's no guarantees of what they want to give going forward. And there's absolutely no guarantees on what our budget, what our incoming revenues would even support. So we can talk all day about room to grow, and I do want there to be room to grow. But the recession, the economy itself will dictate what money we have in that room to grow. And then the sheriff's office may take it in a whole different direction and want to spend their money
That's what I'm saying, you got to
different
get an
things.
agreement with them before they
I
do.
know,
That's what you
I know,
want.
but
You don't,
I think if we
then-
just stay at the beginning and know that you have room to grow.
So if we
But-
want, if we think the 18%, about 19% is a pretty decent raise to become a sergeant. So if he's a 3-year sergeant, he would go, if I change it to be equal, it'd be a little less than this 29, but still pretty good. I mean, you want to try to get the percentage kind of, 8.94, so let me think about. So what percentage this is that? I can put a formula in to pick that up. That's that percentage and add.
So are we changing assumption?
Let's try this right here and see what you.
Eric, I know that I've heard you say before you're a cop. I'm pretty sure you're not an accountant. We've had you in here doing numbers a long time now. But this assumption, if we're gonna count from county longevity to position longevity, is really the basis of all of this. We will overshoot or undershoot if we change that assumption.
I like the assumption of their step matches their years employed, right? That's the easiest way for me to explain it to employees. That's the easiest way for them to understand it. And let's be honest, it's not me that needs to understand it, it's them, right? I'm here for them. So
Mhm.
I think that the way we're discussing right now makes the most sense.
I think right now it's.
Yeah,
good.
I
Once
just
we've
wanna
already
be, I
got-
wanna be you know, I want us to,
That's why we've already got the 6-sheet bill on too, is we've got it built on your number of years in the county. The only thing we may want to consider is do we want to give pre-existing service for TCI and post, which would skew the numbers potentially up.
mm-hmm.
And maybe down in patrols if it's post. But the same thing is still going to affect on your number of post. But it's going to be a lot closer to what we got. Plus, it's easier to explain. You're a 10-year post certified. We don't count you if you want to post, but it's 10-year sergeant, 10-year deputy, 10-year whatever based on post, or 10-year whatever you're in the jail based on TCI. And then everything else is this number of years you're with the county. Maybe the easiest way to do it. Sergeant. Does this look like a good spread here? Then we can make it equal by doing that. I basically formulated that the way it'd be 118% difference between all move across.
The percentage, but,
And all we gotta do is change this, it's lower or increase the percent, but
and another thing we're not talking about, on top of this each year, depending on incoming revenues, will be cost of living. The COLA will be on top of, this is so even though we can look at it and say, well, that's not very much from, you know, 2-step to 3-step of
percent.
20 cents. Because that don't feel like, but then we would also have the annual cost of living. Hopefully, the economy will support that.
How does everybody feel about this percentage? Because all we gotta do is change this here, or this here to change that percentage amount. I think right now you probably wanna get your vertical raise percentages between sergeant, lieutenant, and your jailer's my thought. And then know how much is it worth to go from sergeant to a lieutenant.
Yes.
Is it worth, right here I've got 18.7%. Is that too little, too much? I don't really know that. Because right now our numbers, the problem we're getting in is getting apples to apples in the numbers. We're getting
And I
better
understand.
numbers,
But when we go to commission, we're only going to be voting, and this is where I'm thinking we're at. We're only going to be voting on the start and pay. Are we going to vote on a schedule? Are we going to be asking the sheriff's department to agree to a schedule?
but
I mean, there's a big difference here.
I think if we're gonna come in with the numbers, we'd have this schedule here with these positions, and this is what the new
As
pay
an
is
accountant,
this year.
I like the schedule, but that's
For
a big,
one-year
that's
agreement
a,
with the sheriff, he's willing to agree to it, or if not, say, hey, he needs to go back, the sheriff can't agree to A, B, C on the schedule.
yeah, so back to that again. You know, and a schedule is a new thing.
Mhm.
This is a,
Well, there's a schedule in your budget right now, but the sheriff can move between those lines. And he never has, he's been very amicable to always do that. Like those, do you see those schedules in the back of our budget? He's been, I mean, there's things people promoted and turnover, but he doesn't come in and just randomly adjust Patrol Officer Z for some.
so I'm just
some unheard of
saying, you know,
reason.
as we go, are we expecting the outcome to be that we're gonna present to the commission the start pay, or we're gonna present to them a schedule? Because I don't think we were clear on that.
I would like
I mean,
to
we've been
present a
talking around
schedule
it.
to budget with the understanding that it has to be, for a better word, the sheriff has to agree to it or say it's something he can live with or adjust it to, something he can live with.
And I like the numbers, I'm there too, but that might be something that, I mean, that's,
Because we just started on.
it's not an easy decision from the sheriff's department, and that would be,
But they're wanting to get closer to a step scale, this puts them a step closer.
Right.
The
Yeah.
commission's still gonna have to say, are they willing to,
I got people on the commission that don't wanna hear anything about STEP.
and I know why, because it freezes funds we may or may not have.
Yeah, and they're very vocal about they
So my
don't.
thing is right now.
And then I got others that love it.
The best you can do right now is step them onto these spots like a step scale this year and then see what happens next year. I mean, that may be the best.
And my assumptions are based on what I read on Facebook, they're posting.
I don't have Facebook, so that's probably good.
They seem to have more time for Facebook than committee time. But,
I have just a question. I don't know.
you're allowed, go ahead.
Thank you.
We'll suspend, we're very casual today.
Thank you. On this row K90, I'm sorry, I'm blank line.
Okay.
K90, like step 10 under the sergeant's jail. If you do this 18%, you're now like no longer, you're still the lowest of all the competing people. And so I don't know if that would actually even entice somebody to stay long enough here to, I mean, I understand what you guys are saying, it would be easier to explain, but you also still want to make sure you're competitive as like, you know, just a check figure. And then also, if Gallatin is doing it based on years of service with the city, somebody here wouldn't be able to transfer over because they wouldn't have years of city unless they're accepting it. So, I mean, I know it's like a bunch of balls to juggle, but that's something to think about.
Post.
Whereas we would accept 3 years from other people if we're still, or the 5 years from other people. I mean, just if we're doing the set percentage, you understand, on like just years of service with the jail generally, we still need to make sure that number is competitive.
I agree, I think that's where we were moving, right, is to determine whether the
Okay.
18%
Okay,
was.
sorry.
And then the post is how
No,
we're gonna
thank
deal
you.
with the other one. The other one is like the jail, we're wanting to do TCI, well, the jail wouldn't have it, but for your patrol post. So if they're in Gallatin, they would be post-certified officers, if we give them service for, what'd you say, 5, 10, whatever years of post
Galvin's doing
whatever
10.
pre-post we give, it would give the same number for post over here from, so that would be able to grab the people. Gallatin probably don't wanna hear that, but yeah, that would allow that,
Oh, okay.
which would move these numbers around, but.
I
that's what we're
misunderstood.
thinking.
I thought it was like the step 10 was 10 years with this, the county, and then we take 5 years. I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
I think we're more talking for like, for the patrol group, it's the post-certified, so if you're like patrol officer, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, chief deputy, it's post-certified. If you're a jailer, it's TCI for sergeant all the way up, but then like your cafeteria would drop out, what else? Maintenance and administrative, because they don't have either, but that's, would just be years of service with those folks. But I think that's kind of where Eric's saying would be easier for everybody to understand and be more palatable, but now we gotta figure out what makes market on these, because here's what we've got on here, and this is what's so confusing. Some of them have got these based on years of service with the county, some of them got them based on something else, so they're like
I
inconsistent.
understand.
So like Gallatin's a good example, where is Gallatin at on here?
Gallatin doesn't have a
That's
jail.
right, it's the city of Gallatin, so that's where we're ending up with.
we
Gallatin may
need
be
to
the only
con-
one doing it that way. Because it makes sense with the jail, but it don't patrols now when we went that direction. So we
But
think
we need
these,
to look at Gallatin, PD, just to see what, I mean, just because we don't, they're not, they don't have a jail, they're still transferable employees.
here, let me say one thing, on the jail one, this is one of our concerns. When we looked at other ones, we could pull things where people have like 20 years with the county, but they only have 4 years as like a detective. So they're doing some kind of calculation there, a lot of these counties are. Gallatin may be one of the few that's doing it the other way. If they are, they're not in this data set, so that may be what we're looking at right now, is these two number issues.
And then another thing I'd like to say is, we're not gonna get this right. It's gonna have to continually be fine-tuned. You can work on this for a decade, and it's not going to be,
It's moving.
it's
Yeah.
moving, and we're not hitting it.
Yeah, but
And-
You can improve it to
We
where
can
it
improve
keep your
it,
problem
and if
down.
we can get some stability, but I think that other conversations I've had, what we don't want is, we don't want to decimate our city police, because that's gonna be even more work. I mean, we don't want to just, we wanna break the cycle that we're in, but we've got to get more employees, we gotta get more employees. I mean, right now, we don't have, y'all don't have like a junior, we don't even have a person to run a junior program to try and grow our recruits. And that's the thing, I mean, maybe that would even be a bigger return on us than some of this, to think about, not this year, but come budget time. Don't you tell my commissioner friends that I was suggesting more money for your budget? But a junior explorer program to grow all of us, and we'll make Gallatin pay for part of it if they're listening, I'm sure.
Bob,
Yeah, you know, if we could grow some more employees, so the supply wasn't so limited.
well, we can do everything we can to grow them, and when Gallatin's paying what they're paying, they're leaving.
I know, but then they're gonna go and we're gonna go.
Let's go back and revisit.
We need more supply.
Step 10, because we looked, the average is $25.99, but we've also got to think about longevity that's not accounted for here, and the retirement. So that may be part of why we're seeing these weird skewing too, is we're looking at two different numbers. Let's look back at 10 year on jailers again, see where we're at. Jail, where's your correction officers at? 10 years. Are they way up? They're right below deputies, aren't they? I got it unfolded, yeah, there we go. So, I'm gonna put a data fold in there.
That was all of those steps.
Oh, okay, make sure I fold that. So if we look at the 10 year, the 2546 is the average actually, with those minus in and out, so. And then when we were looking at sergeants, what do we have down there? Sergeants, I think we pulled the average of those when they were adjusted for the retirement. That's why we're showing the report on everybody. So it's the sergeants. That retirement skewness is part of it. Oh, I did that to get your same percentage raise, so that did create us a problem. Yep. We're gonna have to raise this midpoint here if we're gonna make those two consistent raises. Because otherwise you are gonna be below the average quite a bit. For sergeants, for the counties.
So you have it up there, I'm looking at the sergeants in the jail, but you have the cursor up there on the one above it. Are you in corrections?
Well, what I did was on this one.
I just wanna make sure that
This
we're.
one was originally from the comparison, but because we have these inconsistent raises that you would get moving from a deputy to a sergeant, I went back and took the percentage change, if you look at the formula, to pick up the percentage change to make it consistent with the one up here. Well, when I did that, this used to be a higher percentage change, so it now throw that below the average. Because your average back here on the comparison is 3270. So there's only one or two ways to get it, have inconsistent changes in the steps, or kick this one up, or change them. I mean, that's the only way you can do it. Because that's what I'm saying, there's incompatibility there. You know, because originally we had those comparison steps, so we would have had the average adjusted for everything here.
Mhm.
But to make this percentage flow an equal percentage change, it had to be an equal percentage with that. But if we go back, let's just find it. Let me just show you how much larger that percentage is if we go by that average. If we go back to that average, 32, 70. But see now how inconsistent these are, and the reason they're inconsistent is because you got a higher percentage change to a 10-year mark of a sergeant. And I think part of that's also because of one thing, is because I think they're counting the years of service inconsistently, so it's gonna cause that rise. Some are doing like Eric's saying, some are doing the other way. So your 1-year marks are gonna be pretty consistent, but when you go to their 10-year marks and above, they're gonna be very inconsistent because they're doing them like apples to oranges. They're not gonna equal them
There's
out.
no,
There's no way for us to equal them out. We don't know. And with us promoting within, it's important that we keep something good here, but necessarily the 10-year sergeant may not be a huge turnover.
and we know we're gonna come back and revisit this in June.
So I said, you only got so many ways to do it, and I think,
I think Terry's about to say what I was gonna say.
Go ahead.
No, no,
I'll
finish.
let you, because what I was gonna say isn't a good selling thing.
Well, it does, I want steps. Our employees want steps.
I want
But,
steps.
Yeah, I think that it makes sense when you administer the organization to have steps. But right now, we have a bleed that we're trying to stop, right? So I think our priority should be getting the starting pay,
Mm-hmm.
make sure we're good with that, and then work on the steps between now and the budget cycle.
Right. We can't walk back anything.
Right.
Unless,
but
what
if
we
we-
do, let's get what we're going to accomplish, get it as correct as possible.
Right.
And not overextend our
Exactly.
assumptions.
Perfect is the enemy of good, right? So if we
Yeah.
get this, good. We get everyone starting, good. And then we talk about steps during the budget cycle. I feel like that makes it easier from an accounting perspective because now you guys are going on anniversary years
I
next
have one concern
FY.
and only one concern.
And
Here's
I have
what you're
a
gonna
piece in it too, but go ahead, you first.
If we adjust everybody that's below the starting to retain those folks, then your 5-year people, because there's such a disparity, your 5-year jail is gonna make the same as a 1-year jail or something.
So what
Unless we do these little steps intermittent to get them correct.
Right.
So I say we need to get some little intermittent steps for now to keep these salaries from compressing inconsistently all over the place.
Yeah, my whole point was saying that is, we're 30 minutes from when this is supposed to end, and I'm here as long as it takes for my employees to.
Well, I just think we need to just recess for lunch and come back. That's just me.
but-
Can we
Get it
just
done.
run it to animal control at 5:30?
Oh, what time's animal control?
5:30.
Yeah, we can run it to them.
I was
Whatever.
joking.
Well, I'm not saying 5. I think we need to run till we get, because my thing is I don't want to fix this problem and then you create a compression problem
So-
going this way and that way.
Right.
There
And
is-
suddenly we have all these jagged, inconsistent numbers everywhere. and-
There is so much information though, I think, before we implement some of these, and I'm still leaning towards if we fix the front end and fix the bleed, And then not wait until June. I'm not proposing that we wait to June. I say that we reconvene this discussion maybe in January. And continue to try and look. And leave some money on the table. It's not going anywhere. And just see, I'm giving you an option to kind of try and work on the front end and see if we put enough there to stop the bleed, and then come back. We can even come back in 2 months and see where it looks, where it's falling out. Your salary, you don't get any
No, I have
extra.
a question though.
Why don't we, oh, sorry.
Part of this is to fill some big holes, right? Unless you're 19, I'm fairly certain people are gonna come into this job looking further down the road than simply, what are you gonna start me at? So this may create the need to come up with some of these steps, at least up to 10, because if I was going somewhere, I'd wanna know what's my potential, so how much time am I gonna have to give for these promotions to come into effect and my
What would they
money to
look like?
increase.
What do they look like?
And I don't think just fixing the hole to get people in, I don't think you're gonna get the quality people you want, first of all. And secondly, people are gonna wanna know what kind of future they have in a bit, especially when they hear the word government jobs. You know, some of these middle-aged people are gonna be, I say middle, in your 30s, are gonna be looking down the road. And they're gonna factor in the retirement part of this, if y'all gonna keep that
So we
or
got to
get rid of
have a
that.
step.
I don't see how you get around it.
Here's a quick idea.
I don't see how this county's gotten around it all these years.
Here's a quick idea how to get your numbers, and see if Eric's not objectionable, or this number we feel pretty confident, this number we feel pretty confident, this number we feel confident. Determine the rise we want from here to here, make it consistent like to here, and these don't worry as much about, because there's all these inconsistencies driving it. So right now, we feel comfortable with that one, that one, that one, and we formulate that one to get this consistent rise to year 10. And then after year 10, see how this one shrinks, let's make a consistent rise to make it shrink to that one. So basically, I would put that same formula, and it's gonna give you that same consistent rise up through there all the way to your lieutenants. Does that make sense? We
Yeah,
consistently
like
do that?
an hour ago, I wanted a consistent rise.
Well, no, what
I'm just saying.
So let's go over here and show you what it looks like. So basically what you're doing to base your, and you'll do the same thing similar to patrols, because you're gonna use your base point, that number, that number, that number, and then these percentage change will base that number. These three numbers, that determines this, and then you just gotta determine how much of a rise you want here, which is based from that to that, it looks like, if you think that's a comfortable number. Then we do lieutenants the same way, and you basically just smoothing it out right now.
And then, if
Are you okay with that, Eric?
And if I can speak to the adjustability, I found it interesting when I read the information from Rutherford County, when they gave a cost of living raise, in one of their years, they gave a different cost of living raise to law enforcement than they did the rest of the county employees. And in that way, we might not fall behind. Whereas I believe last time we you know, we're trying to keep those numbers, but it is a tool that as we go forward to adjust, it could be adjusted with the cost of living being different between departments. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't like that, and there's some people that might like that, but it's a tool that we could tweak too.
Oh, it's produce that percentage, it'll work a thing, and right now it's gonna look that way, till we get to the end. So delete that formula.
So then, just to recap, we're going to propose a schedule. When we hand off, that's where we're at? Just to go back to where we were talking. We're not coming to the commission with start numbers, we're coming with a schedule. Is that where we're, just to reiterate?
I think so. Schedule to show what each one makes and what the cost is different on each employee. Yeah, and a schedule.
Okay, I just want to reiterate and make sure
We gotta
we're,
get there though, we're now trying to figure out why in the world this makes no sense to
And
me.
they pay 25 times.
Yes.
and I'm okay having a vote on that one.
Yes. Well, I can't figure out where we're at now.
I'm looking at you
Yes,
for
times.
legal. I'm okay to have a vote on that piece, that we're all looking
100% times.
as an outcome to be a schedule opposed to just the beginning pay rate.
Yes, and then that firms up this agreement, makes it simpler because
So-
it's simply an attachment. This is what we're agreeing to.
So I'd
And
like to
then
make a
either it's on
motion
board or not.
as soon as my, yeah, third member is back. We'll,
What do you want to do now?
I'd like to make I'd like to make a proposal that we vote on that. One of the outcomes that we're seeking is a schedule opposed to a beginning hourly rate.
Schedule for each part to 20 years.
Right.
But they make no less than that. So if you're already making more than that, you don't get adjusted. If you're making less, you get adjusted to it.
So to be
Schedule, and then
clear,
we show what the cost is for each person.
the motion is that our outcome we're seeking is a schedule up to 20 years. 20 years?
20.
And opposed to a straight beginning pay rate. We're looking at a schedule.
That's where we're going right now.
Why do you feel the need to make a motion to do that?
That's what we're doing anyway.
That's what we're doing, and
Yeah.
because our conversation, as we're thinking through this, we keep going to other ways, and I wanna make sure that that's what we're gonna have when we get out of this.
Okay, I mean, you could do that or just wait till you've got a final and then make that your motion to approve it as is, and then
Well, let's do it this way for right now, and it's already there.
you're the boss. Boss hog.
That's very, but it's only because we keep, reconsidering the idea back and forth, and I wanna have a solid foundation. And that's why I want to,
I mean,
So-
seriously, it's your show to run.
Okay.
It's not, doesn't matter how you do it, you just
Yes.
keep steering everybody back on track.
so, all those in favor, say aye.
You gotta get a
Second.
second.
Oh, may I have a second?
Got one.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So we're firm, we're gonna come out with a schedule, opposed to just the beginning pay rate.
That's the motion.
That's the, and passed.
Okay. So how do we feel about this one based on that then? This is a schedule. Based on the way we did it earlier, these are the two marks we determined was this mark and this mark, which determines your percentage between those positions, 118% between your corrections officer to your sergeant. This is your 10-year mark, which will determine how much you rise in that direction. So now you have a consistent rise each direction, and it produces your other marks. Basically, you're using 3 legs there. And then all you've got to do is have the beginning rate for the rest of them, and the rate change. So for our lieutenant, we need the start rate and how much we want it to rise, and we do the same formula. It'll give a consistent push every direction. Now, if everybody's in agreement with this number right there and not there, that's the most important. The 2350, the 2790, and the 2546. That's your 3 producing numbers right now. And I would prefer to make those a really bright color, but we know what we did. I can't get the other colors here, but let's get something pretty. Those are the ones that actually you're basing it from. So now we just gotta look and see what we think is a good raise between the lieutenant and the sergeant. Which wherever your jail lieutenant's at. So let's hide everybody between those. Let's hide everybody what we can get. So we got jail sergeants where we're at, correct? So we wanna hide everybody from your jail sergeant down to your lieutenants. By just grouping them and then we're grouping them. Just make sure you let jail lieutenants out like it there on their sheet. Jail lieutenant. So we wanna do that. And group them again. There you go. And the difference between, see, that's your problem, you go from do that kind of year that's way smaller.
So,
That's not sergeant's right
Is that not sergeant? Which one do I have?
that's.
Jail sergeant.
You're done.
You're at.
I'm a
deputy
lieutenant
lieutenant.
deputy, I picked up the wrong one, okay. It's even worse then. Okay, there's your jail lieutenant. And your jail sergeant, okay, maybe that looks better. See what it actually shows us. It's about the same, it's a little bit higher percent, not much. Okay, so how consistent, how much do we think the difference is between a sergeant to a lieutenant in your jail worth? Is it worth the same 18%, more, less?
In my mind, I was thinking 20%. It looks like that's what you've got right there, right?
Pretty close. So now we just need to make that rise consistent. So you want to use
But then
that?
as we look at this vertically, we're overshooting the market, maybe,
You're on 11
potentially.
You're on 11 years instead of 10.
Emma, it will work the same, it's gonna be the same percentage change, so it'll be,
Lieutenant positions.
In the jail.
it'll just be plus. Divided by times whatever immediately above you. Since you do the same thing across. Okay. Does that look better for the lieutenants then? It's the same percentage change on your, for whatever point you're at on your lieutenant, if you get a promotion, you basically would get a 20% raise. That's what we're trying to look
Yeah.
at. It doesn't matter if you're a 1 year, a 2 year, 15 year, as long as you're post certified, don't, or no TCI.
TCI certified.
Okay. Did we have anybody else in the jail? Well, your chief.
Captains.
Captains. Do we have jails and captains? Did we do those already?
No,
I think they're combined with.
they're all captains, yeah.
They're all
And the tenure, I mean, I'm looking at
They need to split
the
those,
actual
right?
right now, and it's still, it's a big lift
See what it is.
between what we're at right now for a jail lieutenant
Yeah.
and what we're proposing.
Let's look right here on the total first.
And I'm good with a big lift, but they gotta maintain, and I think back to what we said, we
Why don't
don't
we go ahead and work it through what we would like to see here, and then about the last hour,
look at
if we're
what,
overshot, then we look at the vertical rises this direction. Because we can take it down, say, we decided sergeant, we can only afford 115, and a lieutenant 120, then kind of look that direction. You still keep your bottom jailer. Kind of make those priority lifting upwards and kind of keep them consistent. The only one that concerns me, do we want to do captains together? A lot of them did them together, that's why we did them together, but there's gonna make a big, the difference between a patrol lieutenant and a jail lieutenant's quite a bit of money, so it's gonna make that difference, and this captain's quite a bit of money too. Or do we just want to go back, let's go back and visit that after we get done and do it, to make that as a note maybe.
Okay.
That way we can keep at least progressing forward, and progress through there, and then we'll come back and grab.
I just feel like we're gonna run out of money.
That's what I'm saying, we can adjust.
These lifts are
vert-
big.
That's why I'm saying we can adjust these vertical here, that's where we want to adjust. I don't think you're gonna adjust much on the horizon, because it's really compacted anyway, you're gonna
It
look.
is, I see that.
We may even want to come back and revisit it this way to visit it that way, I mean, they're so compacted down there.
And if we could get some more money. Hendersonville's looking at that, sales tax increase. If we went with that, we could do this.
I don't want to get debt service in schools unless we change what we do with sales tax. Plus, it definitely does in the city of Hendersonville.
Well, it goes to them, but then we pull back from the,
50% has to be used for education, the other for education.
I know, but then we pull back some of them.
Oh,
Yeah, you see what I'm saying? I thought about it. Do you know what we'd pick up if we did that? If we matched Hendersonville on that half a penny sales tax, I'm thinking we'd pick up about 13 million, and then we could take care of
you
people.
probably need to research, I think if we don't do it, then I think we get to keep it all.
They get to keep it all. I've been
Well,
researching.
Oh, yeah, that's was the determination. I just didn't know where anybody wanted to go from there.
Yeah, I've been in and talked to him. So if we looked at that, so do you know what I'm talking about?
No. So they have to have the
Henderson-
county's approval to raise sales tax?
We get a
That part
window.
I'm not clear
they don't need our approval.
My only concern is Portland and
We'd
several
have-
of us, we.
Hendersonville's looking at a half a
Budget.
penny sales tax raise, and they're gonna keep the whole 9 million. If the county matches it, we raise everybody in the county. We have 14 more million on the table. We can give everybody a raise that we're looking at. But, that's a big,
I think
Did you
metro
say
sales tax will be
property?
lower.
no, I'm sorry, it's sales tax, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
okay.
Sales tax, I'm sorry, half a penny sales tax.
But people are kind of really picky about prices, so you've gotta look at your surroundings as a big concern.
I know,
You got
I'm just saying we need,
Kentucky, Metro, and other Middle Tennessee counties.
I know,
Sales
people will
tax.
go there.
So I'm not sure
I
what
wanna
the
give all
money-
these raises, it's just a heavy lift.
But I'm saying that's something we can look at then, so we're down to the jail administrator, and we probably need to go back and revisit his, because that's another, when we bring in, I'm sure he's been TCI for quite a while. So if we're gonna go by TCI and give back, it's gonna throw a whole new wrench in here.
There's a lot of wrenches, that's why I was saying we might need more time to make it more accurate.
Well,
It's two
I-
things that are coming together.
I think that, but I think even if you need more time to get the total thing, that you need to really go ahead and deal with your jailers and patrol officers.
I do
first.
too.
I agree.
No, if we get where we're comfortable with these, maybe not the vertical rises, then you get the jail, them two groups done, we get the information, and then Monday we present, hey, there's more coming, these are just patrol officers and for the first 10 years or whatever, and this one, this is how they're calculating, this is what we need. Because right now they've got to bleed.
Are
and
we
try.
only looking at your core employees, your mission? Or are we looking at your clerical and your IT and your maintenance and your janitorial? I mean, we haven't even stepped into that, and we've been here for hours.
I've got time. I'd like to look
I
at them
know,
all.
I know. I'm just saying, are you anticipating spreading this? I mean, we've got to cover the core.
Right now, let's go back up to patrols, because we were like, let's ungroup all this data and just try to look at our patrol officers, how they float back from sergeants and lieutenants, because you've got a large groups done. When you're all the way to lieutenants both directions, that's the majority of
Yeah.
your people in this whole department, so let's ungroup this thing first. Not gonna do anything except make it harder. Okay, so we're looking now at deputies, and our next thing would be what, a sergeant, so let's look at how they line up to each other. Is not ungroup them all? Where did you see them at? Cause there's your deputies.
The jail sergeants, should be right there, between 19 and 46.
Well, I did that thing, my Microsoft said that. Make sure I don't overshoot it. Did I already shoot it? Are you sure?
Sergeants?
Sergeant, that's the there they are.
We already did deputy.
Well, we go look at deputies at the top, I'm just trying to get
Okay.
everything between them here. We'll look at those as a group, and let's hide everything between there and lieutenant. And then we can go really quickly between them, so there's sergeant, and let's hide everything down to, I'll tell you what he's doing, we'll talk about it. And we can look at them together, there's jail lieutenant, deputy lieutenant. Wind up their deputies, and then we can see their deputies and their sergeants. And then, so we should have seen them together right here. There we go. Hmm? What I do?
Close your group. Yeah.
What
Go
group?
down. Go down.
Well, I'm not going to, I'll get there, we can go and close it, it's fine. I got to close my weight. I'm trying to see what we look like right now. I don't want to read it. I need another row there, I'm gonna make a noise there. I need another row. a bigger percentage change than anywhere else before. Yeah, with all these inconsistencies, that's what you get up with. So, difference between if we give the same years of service, sergeant for patrols versus a sergeant for,
This versus a deputy.
versus a deputy, how much of a percent increase do we think that is? Wow, they got big percent increases even with the new ones. That's where our sergeant's at right now. Even with that, the sergeants are some way. Just what bothers me, our sergeants are way, and I don't know why.
Because I think that was the category that was over, that didn't need a lift. Is that the category that did not need the lift to start with?
Do we want to do that big of a rise or between that?
Yeah, that was the category that didn't need the heavy lift, because they were already over market.
Right. It's 133% between those. So it's 515.
What's their average now?
Well, 4 year one's 3604 versus 3509. And they would be grandfathered because you wouldn't.
Yeah.
So class they're compressed. They're super compressed. Anyway, it's not going to make your compression any worse, that's for sure. Well, those are so compressed, Eric. Do you think it was adjusted in the last salary survey we did? You think they messed it up on that last salary survey?
I think they messed everything up on the last
So
salary
I think
survey.
they keep these people above market pretty far. I think we probably need to grandfather them and look at maybe the 118 or 20% there and get something calculated down here.
Can we look again? I
'Cause that's a
don't want to
huge-
keep going
Unless you think
back.
it's worth.
I mean, this is the same one we,
Now,
last time we,
from like a corrections officer to a jail sergeant's about 118%. Is there a bigger climb between a patrol officer to a patrol sergeant?
Yes, because in the jail, right, you're there, the sergeant is there
Okay.
with them in the building. Patrol, they're not.
Okay, so what do we think should be a climb there? That's a pretty hefty one. 120% like a lieutenant.
Can we not leave the sergeants where they're at?
We can.
That's what I was
Just
just wondering.
leave
Just leave them? Okay.
where
I
are
mean-
they at right now?
3604.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're gonna wanna make
But
it
not a
consistent
start.
change. So you'll make this inconsistent because they got two different, you know what I'm saying, the percentage of rise is different.
Is that their actual right now or our suggested actual?
And there's nothing,
104's actually.
and they're all above 100, so there's really
3450.
nothing to have it inconsistent, it really hurts, but you wanted it more consistent, I thought, between,
Okay, thank you.
like what raise you get between you know what I'm saying?
Thank
No.
you.
In other words, you wanted to raise, like if you went from a 5-year jailer to a 5-year sergeant, or from a 6-year jailer to a 6-year sergeant to be at 118 no matter
Mhm.
what. Well, these right here, they're inconsistent unless we change one of these data points to make them consistent. Because the percentage change is different, so it's gonna make the percentage, see, this goes up by 2.4 and this goes up by 0.56, so it's gonna make them inconsistent unless we change one of them. If that makes sense. To get it this direction. Or you was wanting to say if we had a 1 through 10 year for your corrections, 1 through 10 year for sergeant, it would be the same percentage raise that you would get if you got promoted.
Right, I guess that's my question, right? We have, for Sumner, everything's blank except for step 4, step 6, and step 11. Right?
Yes.
That's the only sergeants that we have currently?
Right, so I'm saying we could change this to make the same raise and see if it even affects these folks. Probably not.
And,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know, that's
So if
why
I
I'm
did that
talking
one
about this
times this percentage change here, if I do this, I can make it consistent. If I do you
And if we're just looking at
times.
where we discussed taking this not all at once, we don't have any bleed going on in this sergeant category right now. We have 5 employees,
That would bring them up.
and they've been there,
We have more sergeants than, there's Two
Is it,
SROs.
oh, you know what, I'm just counting the deputy sergeants.
There's 2 SROs in the bike
Two
shop and
SROs.
in the jail.
Well, no, there's 4 patrol and then 2 SROs.
In the jail ones.
Well,
Different
they're separate.
category.
If we did that, then it would make these guys get a raise.
And
Why don't you have step 4 be the,
Right.
the anchor and then work backwards to the step 1?
That's what I guess, that's,
Yeah.
can you just bring those down?
Terry, you're gonna have to get a point of order going if you're gonna keep taking feedback from the gallery.
I'm sorry.
thank you.
Or if
Thank
you're
you.
saying, Eric, you want me to use one of these existing ones as your change?
Right, can we not take the 3604, bring it down for step 4 as the recommended? Because that's where we're at already.
It's really, it's what's 3509 now to bring it up. Got you. Yeah, we can do that. And then we can work backwards by the percentage change to each direction. So, let's make sure we do that. And the other one changes by 1% up here, 2.14. So,
And then all these spreads, they look nice and tidy, and I like it from an accounting point of view. But when you're explaining it, it's much easier to tell people when you're moving up, you're getting $1 a year. We can spread it out percentage-wise, but I really do appreciate how Gallatin told their employees, you know, everybody gets $1. It's really,
function for
Yeah.
Well, function here.
Okay, I don't have function, so that's what it is, what I do. Of course, I screwed it up. Look at that. Let's try it again. I'm trying to stay before we want to rank, correct? Okay. Times parentheses plus 1 minus percentage up there, it doesn't matter. You got a new function up there? This one. Function. What? You can make it disappear.
Because it was so highlighted.
No, it did. Should have. Why is that one different? I need to know who to refer to. Oh, did you already?
Yeah, I responded to it. Okay. Yeah. Old juvenile court building, that'd be so good for the Baptist church.
Was it we were renting?
Yeah.
You can't take that way, mathematically, think about it. We're gonna anchor that on mathematics, on the back of the last year. So is this the difference?
I didn't get it.
I did, I know, and then we get straight to him.
Oh, okay. Which one will you use? We're only get 36 at once. That's right. Times this 130 over here. You should have copied the formula because I'm gonna suddenly agree on this item.
so just looking at time-wise, if we're talking about putting a better product together by Friday, you'll have this schedule to go over with the sheriff and other people. But also, we're looking at, Since we're back to the assumption that we're gonna go with longevity or years, county years, and we're still staying with the assumption that we're going to include, are we still going to include prior entity years? Right, 5 years? Are you gonna do that across the board? Because we never said, we just said with corrections. While he's doing
Right.
this, I'll
We did
entertain this
5 with
one.
corrections. I would think, I mean, Gallatin's doing it for up to 10, I think, for post-certified.
When you come back on Friday, can you have what you're willing from the sheriff's department? If you wanna go 5 years, if you wanna go 10 years, where are you gonna be with that? Can you have an answer for that? If you wanna say we're gonna count 5 years from outside entity, or we're gonna count it 10 years from outside entity, is that a possible decision? Because it makes a difference in the number.
I'd say we just do 10.
10?
Yeah. I mean, that's what our competitors are doing, so I feel like we at least have to match it, if not be better than it.
So, do we wanna take that assumption now?
I think so.
See, if we anchored on that 3604, it'll still make these be adjusted, but I don't know if they're correct or not, but it gives a 130% spread. Do you think that's correct? These are where your people are at right now? Counterpart.
I believe there's one further over. I think Winslow's gonna be a lot. Yeah,
17
I think that's Winslow.
year. Or would you rather anchor it backwards from the top, the third 17-year person? It'll lower that 130%. Do we think the 130% is reasonable? 30% from patrol to a sergeant?
I think that's reasonable.
Start with there and kind of work our way back for right now, so. Since our coloration doesn't work anymore, let's go down to the lieutenant.
So back on, I just wanna make sure I understand where we're at.
See, that's our problem, the lieutenants are 99% of those. That's why I think their sergeants are probably overshot. That's, well, I don't know, or just lieutenants there though. Maybe that's undershot, but based on the way we're doing it, because, you know what I'm looking at on him. Oh, shoot. I think that lieutenants would probably be undershot. Let's look at the averages above them. He's 101%.
Do you think?
See, the problem is that where we're at now is because
This
they're,
raise for core personnel versus.
I mean, we're anchoring to numbers that weren't smooth to start with. And then we're trying to make smooth, and that's why it's causing this ripple.
Come off the
And
wagon here.
Well, they're making almost the same for years of service, a bunch of places.
And that's-
17 years and the other one's making very few pennies difference. So you had a minute ago, we had a sergeant at 17 years making almost exactly the same as a 4-year sergeant.
Mhm.
That's the problem. Is why
I
we're
mean, that's
having-
probably why we're seeing some bleed.
But here's my thing, there's 130 from here to here. It's only 101.4 down to a lieutenant's house. This needs to go up and that needs to go down, or this needs to go way up, and I don't know, because the average is, when you look at Wilson, let's look at the comparison on a lieutenant deputy. Is it up or down? Down. Lieutenant deputy. say it needs to go up some. But it's like we were looking earlier at the sergeants, look, pretty hefty spread.
Can you change the vertical so it's not so much for the horizontal?
You know, the 2.4, that may be part of it too. On that one's part of its issue, it's all doing all of it.
I mean, you can look at Wilson being at 39, but look at Galton at 30. I mean, these numbers, the spread is just everywhere.
And if we get a Wilson sergeant.
What was the sergeant making?
Let's see, for Wilson,
No, for Sumner.
it's got 35.42 on a 1 year, let's say sergeant was 4 year. 3604,
So we beat the market
on some of them,
on that one.
yeah, sergeant we did big time.
And so then when you throw that into the vertical look that you're looking at, that's what's creating this
That's what created all
ripple.
the issue with the lieutenants and
Yes,
everything.
that's it.
Yeah, I think we need to bring sergeants, looks like down.
I mean, not reducing any base pay, but that
Well,
one,
grandfather people's what you
Yeah.
have to do.
but that's what's creating this ripple in the vertical.
Yeah, it's your sergeants. I think this one is low, but I think that one's high too at the same time. I think it's a compound.
Especially if we compare it to Galton. And I don't know what's up with Wilson. I don't know why those two are so far apart.
Well,
And I don't know when did Wilson adjust?
I don't know.
I feel closer to the Galton numbers because it just
What
happened.
does it look like when the mechanic just did all those adjustments?
Robertson, I don't know.
Robertson.
Yeah, that's,
Well, I know we don't want to base it on them necessarily, but give us a little bit of an idea.
I don't know what they base theirs on
I
either.
don't either. But
I mean, I've
at
seen
least gives us
some-
an idea what's going on.
I've seen some of their employees across the county are really, and we don't know how long they've been they've been below market over in Robertson County.
Robertson's way below on sergeants.
Everybody was just about.
And actually, we're the highest on sergeants.
Yeah.
But is there something different about our sergeants?
They're the best.
You're gonna say that about all your employees. I'm
turn
sure you want that on
microphones off.
camera, right? They're all the best.
I was, yes,
Yes,
super
I
concerned
thought
about the
so.
camera.
Yeah, you should be.
I think right now, just my thought is we need to bring the sergeants to their raises the same as maybe the jail sergeants, not to take the existing ones, but that brings that down and see what that pops at.
That's a big place to have such a large skew too.
But still 130% between deputies, so let's look at that comparison to sergeants. Even if that number's a huge skew for us, I mean, what do we have of our sergeants right now? Oh, that's when we changed. We didn't use the 32.
What if we use, let's just see if we put in the 32, because if we're gonna use this model, let's use this model and see what it says.
Let's look at it. That's it. That's it. There. Our 26% rise.
And then our sergeants are,
Sure, I picked up the right thing. It's perplexing. So if we picked up pretty close to Gallatin's patrol officer, so how much does Gallatin have between their sergeants and patrol? Our sergeant was where, right? Where's our sergeant at? There it is, on down there, right there. Plus Gallatin divided by. They give about a 24% raise for a difference between a sergeant and
yeah, but like I said, there was, the
24.4.
$1 per hour in order to weigh their
Right.
increases more to the bottom than to the top.
what I'm thinking is
So,
if we're using their patrol officers pretty close to a market mark for us, then we may want to use their sergeants, which would be a 24.4% increase.
What does that make that number?
I don't know. Just a thought of mine, and see what it looks like. Plus that times 1.24, was it 2.4 or 4? Was it 2.4 twice? 2.44. Right there. Almost to that amount we had earlier.
That's what the model suggested, right? The 32.
32.51.
Yeah, it's about what it suggested.
Well, that's Gallatin's, but I don't know. And it looks like Gallatin is counting years of service for years of service too, so I think if we ran with the 32.21 or 32.51, either one of those would work.
What
And
was
then-
Gallatin's retirement?
That was, they have to pay 5%, so.
They the employer, they the city.
So they're getting paid that
The
plus
city.
5%?
We adjusted for that,
Oh, that adjustment's already in there?
Yeah, they're right here,
Oh,
if you
okay.
look, see, we minus out.
So that is
Okay.
in our calculation, but in actuality, if you're asking what actually is happening, we're gonna pay the $32 an hour, and then we're going, plus we will add on retirement, and the county will be paying an additional 5% into the
When we take out the
retirement.
retirement, well, here's what, we take out the retirement, patrol officer for them is 25.89. We have in 25.89, we work a few more hours, have a few more holidays, but we're pretty much mark to mark, we got very little competitive
Yeah,
there.
we do.
That's the only thing we got to
'Cause we pay-
tell me there.
And then we pay their portion.
If we start the exact
Well, I
same
think I'll
dollar
have
with
it.
that
They
retirement
don't have a-
differences, then you can tell me work for a few more
But some
hours,
of
and
the
that's
others
kinda it, isn't it? Maybe
ask
a little
them to
bit, we don't
pay.
have a lot else to
Does
offer.
Galvin ask them to pay in 5?
They pay triple time on their holidays and have paid overtime,
It's
pretty
4.
regular
So they get
for their
9%
patrol.
into their
So do we think
retirement.
the 25.89
They're
will
from that
help
one
them?
11.
That's kind of my question.
And
Here's what
we're
I'm
still
looking
giving
at.
them 36
This
and
is
they
the,
have
this
more.
is the gross for Gallatin on their start, okay? That's minus the retirement comes to 25.89. We have a few more holidays and we pay 8.4 versus 80, but Eric said that they pay triple time for their holidays and a little more overtime. So is the 25.89 what we want to run for patrol or slightly higher for patrols? I mean, because the thing is, you want to fix your problem. The thing is, it's probably going to get a fight started that it might raise it again.
And back to you, like, we wanna fix it, but maybe we look at where we're at in 3 months, because we're still gonna be playing this game. As long as we don't have supply for employees, we're gonna continue to flex.
But if all of us raise the salary, you may increase, say if us and Gallatin all raise salary, we may pull more people into.
We still have the same
patrols and
limited
it'll get
supply
more
of
people.
employees.
I'm saying it may increase the supply if you're offering to be your salary, to everybody.
Where we gonna get them? We're gonna grow
They're
them on a
pulling from other
tree?
things, they're pulling from other areas.
EMS, they'll be here next month.
Well, I mean, people that would like work in retail may decide they want to push more that direction. It's more risky to carry a gun and be on the road, but if you're
So
paying
let's
more
pay
money,
more.
it pulls people to willing
Right.
to take a little more risk. That
So we
may,
can pull in more, and that's what's happening.
my thought, maybe, well, that's why everybody's raising salaries in hopes to get a bigger supply, or steal everybody else's.
That's exactly right. You can go to Chick-fil-A and make $19 an hour, and your biggest concern is, do I have to give them the extra sauce? Same
That was
place.
exactly what I was
robs
going with,
Chick-fil-A.
but I thought I
Or
wouldn't say
somebody
it.
robs Chick-fil-A.
Is that what
Yes,
sauce?
always extra
Or
sauce.
somebody robs Chick-fil-A. you know.
Always.
But the same thing, you go to a jail making as much Chick-fil-A, and then you're down in the jail where you have to put up with the inmates.
Right.
And you
And
can't-
there's some personal responsibilities you have there too.
Yeah, and then you have to put up with the inmates, and they're rude, and, you know, they're.
They're not gonna watch this video, so you don't have to speak to them.
Well, I don't care, I mean,
I understand what you're saying. It is,
it just is what it is. I mean, if people are rude, they're rude. I'm not gonna lie about it. But, my thing is on your deputies, we use basically 25.89, I think. Are you gonna accomplish what you want at the 25.89? Have we got enough to weigh out with Gallatin, the both of us, that we're mark to mark, at least with him? It looks like we're real close if we're not, because of retirement, they do have to pay, we have better retirement, we have a few more holidays, we have 10 hours of this, but they get triple paid on holidays and something more overtime.
And let's go
We
over-
work 8.4, so I think the 25.89 is probably okay, my thought, but I don't know what.
let's go over the retirement again, because,
We minus that out right there.
so right now, in our sheriff's department, we're gonna put in for, is it 11.8% into the retirement? Is that the
11.28.
11.28? So let's say I work at Gallatin, what am I getting put into my retirement?
Yeah, I can tell you, but the Gallatin, city of Gallatin, has retirement down there, I gotta find it. Okay, they're on the hybrid, which means you contribute 5% and they contribute 4%.
So they're gonna get 9 in, but 5 of it's their own money.
But also they do a 401k match, I think it's 5% maybe, or,
I know they do a 401k match, I can tell you. the
So that's
percentage.
not in this.
no, we didn't write, we read everything pertinent that we thought was the most pertinent, because otherwise we're never gonna get done.
So that would probably bring them back up to where we're at.
This is kind of what I'm looking at, just how I would feel if I was evaluating the jobs. I would think that us and Gallatin, that amount's pretty close.
Okay.
Okay.
The question is on the sergeants, what was their rise, the 24%? Kind of my thought is that if we're doing that, do we want to do the sergeant rise the same as Gallatin then, or do we want to stay at the 30 we had? Because if not, we got this huge difference in lieutenants. So I think we do that and then bring the lieutenants up some, those two together may get us back kind of a vertical and horizontal.
I don't think that we can work on the vertical just because of where we started.
This horizon here, we got 2.4, do we want to make that 2%? To this 10-year point, or do we want to leave it where it's at? Some of them use 2%, some of them use 3%, the one county use 4%.
What
I
county
think
did
Rutherford
that?
used 2 if we look at their steps. The one we keep talking about, Robertson.
Roberts.
If we look, let's look at that, see how much Rutherford got, for instance. They've had a scale wall, so we take that, one, divided by that. They got a 2% raise, or rise between their steps. Ours is higher.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have, Montgomery. They are
And with
2%,
Rutherford, we were
okay.
assuming earlier, we don't know, but we were assuming that they went back and and I do believe they go back and start counting again from the new
Gals.
position.
We think some of these do. This is, it's like everybody's 2% except for one. Is right now, maybe overspoken. I thought, which one did I not do? Robertson's the only one I do. This is what Robertson's showing. How much I thought they were higher percent. 4%, yeah. So they're double increases of everybody else. Robertson is.
4% year over
Everybody
year.
else is 2. So if we're going to look at doing a table, we may just want to consider making that rise from that number to 2, and then rising from here, or we can go the way we're going based on this average for 10-year marks either way. It's whatever you guys think's the easiest to. Either one of them makes sense. It's what we think's the easiest to explain to your employees. It makes sense to the sheriff and everybody else.
I think the way we've been doing it.
Leave the 2.4. If it does, it's going to put 2.4 everywhere on the whole lieutenants across. Everybody else is using 2 except for Robertson. They're using 4. And Robertson's,
Are you saying start at the sergeants at 2?
no, I'm sorry, you take this
right,
instead of
to
going 2.4,
spread.
you spread it 2% going all the way across the 20 years.
The growth.
I got it.
Instead of the 2.4, because that's what all the
And,
rest of them
and
are.
industry is, between 1% and 2%.
Do 2.
Yeah, do 2 and let me see what those numbers look like.
Still pretty good chunks for senior high people too. It does. It looks good.
And as we grow, it compounds.
It looks. I think it looks good because we're going to count 4 years of service now. That makes sense. And then when we go down here, we figure out what we wanted to rise here, and then we can mark that number off a bit now. Kind of makes a lot more sense. We got 2% everywhere now. Makes a lot better sense.
Was that 2.5 hours ago I spoke on that?
Nobody can say we ain't been exploring it hard.
We have been exploring it hard.
Trying to figure out what's the correct thing. Let's do that. So if we figure out what we want the raise to here and do the same thing on this one then. That's what everybody seems like they're consistently doing on all the other counties. Instead of having those automatic, you have a 2% rise all the way across. And then the only thing you have to determine how much rise you want right here. See how it does to your existing. So the sergeants are up no matter what we do.
And let me ask you, if we're
But I don't know
doing
why.
this, I just want to
Well, this guy here.
address that currently,
Angelo's way underpaid for his number of years. It looks like.
when I see these schedules, and I don't know how you talk about it with your employees, you talk about longevity. This 2% to me, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. This 2% to me represents longevity also. And I'm not anticipating that you're going to smack a longevity on top of that.
We're gonna calculate 3 years and minus the longevity to come out the rate, because that's where we are right. Or it's included in our comparison now. That's an all-inclusive.
You see
rate,
what I'm
so
saying? If we're doing steps and we're looking at a step and you're in step 3, you're on your 3. and this is what you're making, I'm not anticipating that you're gonna give them the whatever,
Well,
375
it won't affect
longevity
you-
on
It won't
top of
affect
it.
your start rate. Your start rate, there's zero, and you, well, we get
Right.
$300 on year one, here last. Well, you gotta
I'm
be
just saying,
completely
as
done.
I
you gotta
go,
be
as I go
done.
down, I'm just saying,
You gotta
I'm
be
looking
completely
at
done.
that.
Really get it year two.
Right.
I'm just saying, are you looking at, we're gonna give them another, a longevity on top of this? Or,
Okay.
cause I'm looking at that 2%. It is longevity, cause I'm in I'm in
Well,
year 2,
We're
so
just
this is
creating a
my.
table, my point right now, we're just creating a table to show where everybody goes to kind of equalize in the market. We're not creating, in my opinion, a step scale, because it take a lot more work, and as you're saying, there's question if there's
There's-
enough. If we bring that in, I don't know if there's enough support in the commission if they would vote it in, because it's multi-year, I don't know. The thing is, they were asking us to explore this, and my thought is, create a table, the existing adjustments, and kind of just run from there. Right now, the longevity you got is $300 first year, 75 after, and after year, $1,550, is that correct? It makes a total of $2,100. We're calculating and coming up with these dollars, but we can,
I'm just saying, as the commission votes on this, you know, are we voting on this, and then in addition, there's gonna be longevity that comes in behind that?
it's already funded, is what we're saying, and it's a different line longevity.
Right. Is
So it's on top of this,
We're
you're
doing it on
saying?
comparison. What,
Is it included,
it's
is what
included
I'm
in this right
thinking?
now, but we make it simpler. What we may want to do when we come back with your cost figures, we may take people's salary with the ARPA and kind of ignore the longevity. I don't know which way you want to go. It's kind of, Gallatin's, this amount right here, the 3209 at year 10 includes their longevity. Let's see what this looks like in year 10 for patrol officer.
I just wanna make sure that we understand
3209.
what the total package cost is.
Well, we're gonna come up with the total cost when we get done today.
Yeah.
Or when we,
Well,
so
and
we would
not
do
like, we
39
like
for-
this, and then, you know, later, we're gonna roll it
Well,
out, and everybody's gonna get their
I
longevity on
just
top
want
of
to
it.
be clear on the question here. You're saying the longevity bump or the steps?
I'm thinking they're
It's
the
not
same thing.
both, is
That's what
you're
I'm thinking, and that's what I'm
asking. Okay.
asking. If, I'm considering it the same thing, not two bumps. Because
Right.
to me, that's what
One
the
negates
steps,
the other.
that's what, to me, this is. This is longevity. You've been here 5 years, so you're getting more pay based on your years, because we're not looking at,
That's if they approve to continue to do this, but if they're just gonna do it at one time, is what I'm saying.
I know, it's,
We don't know what they're gonna do next year. They've got to agree to fund, and they may say, hey, they may say, hey, take that thing and add a I don't know what the commission will say.
I just want to be clear what we're asking when we go to ask and when we go to vote, that we're voting on, are we voting on a 2% plus, if you're a 5-year employee, the 525 in addition to?
What
Or,
I'm
you know.
thinking, you're gonna have the table with each listing instead. Then we'll just have a schedule, this is employees, the current, number of years, position, paid, before and after difference.
And I'm in agreement with that, and I just don't anticipate there'll be a
Question is,
longevity
if we
ad.
include the longevity in it, then it'll just make the difference on what we calculate, because like right now, if we were at a 10-year employee, 300 plus, what's the longevity?
I think
Do you
the
understand my
question
question?
still becomes, in trying to sell this thing to the commission.
Right, you gotta figure out which way you
is-
go.
Is the longevity still in
'Cause-
play, or is it gone
Exactly,
to take
that's exactly
this?
what I'm saying, because this looks like this takes the place of longevity.
The thing is, the whole county-wide has a longevity plan.
And that was one of the questions I was trying to see, because when I looked at the whole county-wide spreadsheet, I couldn't determine that.
Yeah, but they have a longevity plan because what other position or
They do.
departments have this step
They
organization?
don't, but what I'm saying is, if we're just doing this for a costing factor this year, and there's no guarantee for next year, then we give them this year, and then next year, what are we gonna do about their, say next year they say, oh, we're just gonna leave everybody where they're at and do a cost of living for 2%, then suddenly all these steps disappear.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I know,
It's kind of,
if we had a master plan, like how,
it would make sense for it to disappear if you were actually doing a scale, but as you're saying, a lot of them are very cautious on the scale because it's guaranteeing future funds that you may or may not have.
exactly.
That's kind of where I'm, and
But if
Right,
this
me
goes
too.
into some resolution form, somebody would have to do a new resolution to counteract this one.
what I'm
That's the
saying,
only way it would disappear.
well, I'm saying it's not gonna be a salary scale, it's just a table, number of years of service, and
Mhm.
salary to come up with what we're paying these people to adjust to the market. That's the thing to give the commission, if they wanna do turn this thing into a scale, whatever, that's a discussion for during the budget season.
Okay, but from what I'm hearing at the beginning of this meeting is, we're trying to create this, to take to the sheriff, to go, okay, I agree with it. We present it to the commission. And when we present it to the commission, it's gonna have these steps.
Right, but there's two ways to do that. I mean, just like when we went into this salary survey the other year, they came in and we did all these adjustments, but they were one-time adjustments, or are we gonna consider this a scale? I think a scale was way outside of what we were asked to do, so I think right now you come up with something like this with the table you bring with the cost and the table, and then during the budget cycle, that's something for the sheriff's department to talk to the budget committee and the commissioners about what they want to do as far as long-term. That's a different discussion.
So
But right
this
now,
is just a
it's a
point
very
in
valid
time.
question of hers when we calculate the hourly, is these going to include the longevity?
Right.
For my cost factoring right now, it does, but we can change that. So the least confusing would be to say, this is your new salaries and the longevity is just something separate unless they do a salary scale next year. I think
And that's it, is it something, so we present this and we just, we talk about my deputies at 10 years, so we're gonna pay them $30, let's say 31 an hour. We're gonna pay you 31 an hour, so we're gonna present it to the commission, gonna pay 10-year deputy $31. And are we gonna say plus longevity, or are we gonna say longevity's there? Because that's a big difference,
When we
because
did
we
the
got a lot of people
calculation, we
in
included the longevity. My only concern is if we
Then
leave it
$31
coupled
should
and then
be-
they don't do this next year, then you've got employees that get $2,100 a year for, well, we have to raise their salary up to capture that, it must be 75. But I don't know, you don't want to get things too confusing, that's what we've
No,
got to.
but when we go to
uncover today.
present the $31, it's a big difference between,
Well, I know what you're saying, if we have a 20-year employee that's getting
it's $2,100.
$31 an hour plus another $2,100 for longevity, it makes their gross pay different.
And we can look at it at that one employee, but we can look at it overall, and it's,
Now, these
I don't
numbers
know,
would
what are
be
we
total
at, like
including the ARPA
400,000
payments
or?
for now, the ARPA would be on top of this.
So is this my question is
Remember what happened.
is this rate including longevity? But I see what you're saying.
That's something for you guys
So
to
we-
recommend, and we all, I don't know. I
So
mean, it's hard to
is
say, it's going to.
this is just a frozen place in time for right now, today,
A snapshot.
a snapshot. We got this money today, pay these people this money today. And are you gonna pay them, in addition to this money today, the $31, you're gonna give them let's say it's $1,500, their longevity check?
So the thing
Or
about
you're
the
not?
longevity check, you only get it once a
It's a year.
year.
Right.
278,000 for the whole,
Longevity.
for longevity.
All right, so let's make it 300,000. That's,
That's the 300,000.
or 278 is your longevity for the year,
For the whole county or just the sheriff's?
just the sheriff's.
Sheriff and jail.
Yeah, it's in that total.
So when you come, and when we finish this, are we gonna say, as a snapshot today, we want a 10-year deputy to make $31 an hour plus longevity, or not plus longevity? That's my question, as clearly as I can get to it.
I know that's a question we've got. Well, how would we keep that longevity?
I say plus longevity because you get longevity once a year. It's not your hourly rate that you're getting every 2 weeks when you get paid, right? And that's what's important to these guys.
So I used it for these comparisons for all of them, so that's fine. So when we do costing, we need to come out, I just need to take their gross plus the ARPA compared to this, because that's what we're doing. Because in other words, their gross pay would be, I don't know, let's just make up a number what would we have.
So does that change the $31?
I wouldn't, I mean, that's just kind of me. We could take it down a tiny bit for those, but you gotta think your first year.
And I'm not
at the
suggesting
end
one
of-
way or another, I just wanna make
But
sure
like
that we're very
patrol-
clear on what we're saying.
Patrol at the end of the first year is only $300 at the end of the first year, and the first year here would actually be zero if you look at it. Well, if we're trying to follow everybody else and doing a 2% climb, the way we're doing it right now, we need to relook at our costing, but I think we need to put it without longevity. It makes the most sense. Which includes the ARPA because that's your total, but it don't include longevity.
Right.
I think that's based on what other counties are doing.
Is longevity a separate line?
Yes.
Not on, not on that.
Not on the spreadsheet we're looking at.
It's over here.
Is it
It's
on
bad.
somewhere else?
Yeah, if it was ahead. Lord of mercy, where did it go to? You hit it.
So the math we created in each step includes the longevity.
Yes.
And then we're gonna
Then that's
re-add
not an
it.
accurate depiction of what we're
But-
trying to accomplish here.
But the thing is, right now, if we start looking, when the way we ended up now in patrols, we started out with the start pay, basing it on Gallatin, trying to get competitive. We did a 2% riser like Gallatin, and we did a break between vertical like Gallatin. If we're doing that, then where we're currently at really doesn't matter other than costing. And we're costing
Well,
not right anyway.
him offering a job, he goes off your sheet and it says it's X dollars an hour, and then longevity. Well, that's really not an accurate statement because that cost per hour was factored with longevity in it.
But we're gonna go back and recost it before Friday if we're gonna do that.
Right, so those are the numbers. What would we sit down and offer a
Basically-
job for today?
Basically, what we would, let's just, where's that thing at? Sheriff's Pivot data too. I don't know, that may be true. I don't know, let me get.
It just looks like
Is that it?
we're hitting longevity twice.
That's exactly what'll happen based on the way I saw it.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing.
That's what I'm trying to hide, I don't see it though. You see
Do the
it?
pivot data too.
That wasn't pivot data
Because
too,
as
it's
they
pivot
gain
data
in
up.
steps, they're gaining in that's where their longevity
Sure,
is.
pivot
And
data
if we
too.
need to make this right, then we kick a little bit more into this and we get it,
That's,
you know, get it
I
right,
guess that's
but-
my whole point, right? If I tell a guy he's making $27.33 an hour, when he gets his check and multiplies $27.33 by 85 and his check is not right, he's gonna say, why is my check not right? Oh, well, in November on your anniversary, we're gonna give you this $300 longevity. You see what I'm saying? Well, that's not what he's making per hour that pay period.
Here's the way we calculate the cost. We took what's in your budget right now, plus the ARPA again, because you know it's in that total, but we pay somewhere else, plus the longevity, that's what we came to compare to other counties we might have seen it now. That's the way we costed it back too. Right now, because we went back and we based it on Gallatin's salary, you know, their hourly, which don't include their longevity, I'm assuming, in that hourly. The simplest thing for us to do, and Eric's got a good point, is to do it this way. This is a start pay for your deputy, this is year 2 or 3, wherever they're going. But in addition, they get their normal longevity schedule, which is the 300, the 75, the 150, whatever it is, once a year. And then it's all it is a little costing factor. When we do this starting with Gallatin and we do a 2% rise, we're gonna stay on market for a competitor over there, Gallatin, pretty much. Which is, looks like we're your biggest competitor.
Right.
The other one, I'm not trying to be mean, but 4% a year plus cost of living, I just don't see that other county affording that scale long term. Unless they got a growth rate of over 6% with health insurance.
It's longevity,
They may, but I
Gallatin
just
giving
don't
a
see it.
longevity check also?
Yes. It's right here. Well, it's over here in comparison to. That right there. They in year 1, they get whatever.
No,
That's not longevity.
That's not longevity.
I'm sorry, it's right here. Right there. But you see, it makes a fairly small difference anyway in any of the 10-year mark.
What
Ours
is-
is $975 a year, 10 years.
Say that part again, I'm
It's
sorry.
$975 for 10 years.
Right.
$300 for the first and $75 per year.
So what is theirs?
Um,
I mean, I've looked through ours, I'm pretty comfortable with what they look like.
City of Gallatin, let's see. After 3 years of continuous service,
100 per
they
year.
offered 100 per year, so they would receive $1,000, so they're pretty comparable.
Yeah, it is.
So if we're
Okay.
basing rate to rates, they're getting 975, so we're staying pretty comparable. At 20 years, they would be, because we're assuming they back up, be 2,000, we'd be 2,100, so they're really comparable. And then ours freezes, let's see if theirs freezes.
It doesn't say that.
Doesn't say, so they may actually pass us at some point. But I think right now the simplest thing, just my fault, is consider this,
And Gallatin
They're
has a
right,
freeze
and
on
then
these
something different.
steps though,
do they?
I think so.
Might not have.
I think they do. I had a conversation in one of their, I don't want to speak on it without going back and talking to them.
But if you have a new person with 1 year, I don't know, I guess you could. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, that may be something to know too.
I believe, I want to go back and make sure I got it right.
Technically, if we implement this with that, you've got this with the freeze on steps too. That's really what you're gonna have unless the commission decides to do
I
something.
remember my conversation, I'm pretty sure there was a freeze at the top end of this, where we're projecting a 2%.
Right.
There was, there's a moment in time when they stopped.
Well, Gallatin only goes to year, and we can do that.
Right.
That'd be a
And
good
maybe that's
discussion.
why they're only giving us a chart that goes to a year or so.
It is, that's the end of theirs. So do we need to end ours there? That's another discussion.
I mean, it is.
Gallatin
And
only goes
it's,
to 10 years. Do we need to end at 10 years? And and say, hey, if you're, after 10 years, you get cost on, that's another discussion.
I think that's what they're doing, and I don't wanna
That may
get
make it
into,
possible to do all these raises too.
I don't wanna get into their reasoning right now, but there was some really good reasoning with that. I'm sure you're,
In 10 years, you become the most productive, on average. There's a learning curve and you get a most productive year. So the question is, do we actually want to run this thing to 20? The only one that's running 20 is Rutherford, and everybody else is kind of ended down here, 16, 15, 14, and 10, and 12, a bunch of 12.
and again, without getting into their reasons, I agreed when they were explaining it to me.
I think a good point right now is we need to determine where we think it's reasonable to end this thing too.
Our job loss is between 5 and 7 years, according to that CTAS report that they did statewide. We're trying to fix the bleed at this moment, and I'm offering to sit back down and work on this some more soon, in 3
We wanna
months.
end it at 10. That's a good point to stay them at 10, but everything after that's the
Yeah.
same.
And then we're here to take care of the bleed. We don't have a bleed there, and we can readdress it if it becomes an issue.
I see both sides of the argument, but I do think, I think stopping at step 10.
And we're still getting longevity. I mean, not longevity, cost of living.
Right.
It's not like we're stopping. We're
And
still-
longevity,
Huh?
and longevity.
You basically just
We
wouldn't have
stopped longevity at
step-ups.
20, yeah,
No, it continues.
but
No.
it stays at 2,100. It
It
doesn't
stays the
increase the
same.
amount.
So there's let's look at the consensus. You've got one at 10 years, two at 12, one at 14, one at 16, and the other at 20.
I like 10, and we talk about more later.
Yeah, I think if we do 10 now, and then if we see a need for steps, we can bring those during the budget process.
So you'd run that step, and then after that you get, well, that ain't a top, right? That's like you get, say we move somebody here for a 20-year deputy, then they can still get cost of living when they're not
They're still
stuck.
getting a bump. I mean, our current employees.
So what I'm saying, they would get a bump, and then think they would still be eligible for, if they did that, they'd still be eligible for that up to here, and then after 20, you get CPI, whatever it is.
And if we look at them right now, we look at them, they're making, I've got employees here that they're out, their years in service are not the same, but yet their pay is the same. I mean, it's not like we're stepping away from,
Well, they used to be a real compaction, they all made the same. A deputy, everyone made the same, and it caused a problem, so we tried to do small longevity factors to split it, but it didn't help a lot.
it's,
So it's a good point. I mean, it may be a point to stop it at 10. Let's see, what is one county that's. Robertson goes out to 14.
I like 10.
So how does that change your overall number?
That's what we'll have to go back and look at the calculations, it's gonna be off anyway. We just did one of them, we gotta go back and look at all of them. It'll put us back into the range.
Mhm. There were some really good reasons, and I'm glad I thought about this conversation I had.
So what I think we're doing right now, if this makes the most sense, we're gonna take,
And also,
determine that start pay there, determine the vertical spreads, determine the horizontal spreads, and determine the 10 years, and that's kind of what we're going right now for patrols. And the same thing for jail, so we need to probably go back and visit jail for all the same thing then.
Yeah.
All the way through. And then
Yeah.
the question is on captain, probably need to create a new captain position for jail inmate.
The only
And
problem I
you-
see after doing all that is your longevity. You're gonna have to figure out
Jail and the sheriff.
from the
But I
commission
don't know that-
standpoint, overall
because
cost
I understand that
versus
their
true
titles are the
pay.
same, but
That
I
when he makes
would,
his offers to new employees.
Well, I think his new officer employees.
I would
will be
say
what's
there's
on the
no
schedule, and
way
then you
that
get the
their,
longevity
when I
outside.
look at it, I
Outside,
think
because
about
it's a
their
separate line.
That's what
contribution.
I think.
Okay.
And I think right now, when you
And
go back
their
to jail, do the same
compensation.
thing, make it start pay you got.
When these
spread
things are
2%,
equal is
figure
when
out your
we're in good
verticals, put your
shape.
pins out, and that's
But
when you
even
go
though their
straight.
titles are the same,
Simplify.
their contributions are
Understand it?
completely
Well, then you
different.
can show
I
consistency
mean,
in
they
the
have
application.
a, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
And
then,
plus, we spent a
I was
lot of time trying to figure it
curious
out, so.
They're
At
all
so-
paid the same.
yeah, I wouldn't think, so what we're discussing down here is, I look at contribution. Contribution should be always equal to compensation. You should get compensated for your contribution to the organization. And even though the titles are the same, we have sergeants in the jail and sergeants in patrol,
They're different.
they're completely different. their contribution to the organization are completely different. The only thing that is the same is their titles. So I'm just saying, do they have to be locked together? Because
They should
they
be.
are,
Well,
They're not
she's-
right now.
They're not locked together.
Yeah.
She's talking about captains.
The captain's probably not
captains.
separated, what we're
Captains.
thinking.
that's,
We think
that,
your
I'm just, I'm
Patrol
not,
captain probably needs to make more than your captains in your jail.
I was curious why they don't
Well,
anymore.
and so I'm not,
because we're moving towards them all being post-certified. Captain Maynard is post-certified and
Right.
TCI certified. That way, when something inevitable happens in the jail where all the criminals are at, he can take a law enforcement approach to it and not just a corrections approach.
So all your captains ideally will fulfill functions on either side?
Either side, we could say.
So that's,
Okay.
then it can.
then their
Right.
contribution is the same.
Yes.
So we're gonna
That
base
was
them
what I
on-
was
Yes.
suggesting.
That you came from the
Right.
sheriff's side.
So.
And just curious, if we have patrol, and
Patrol, oh my
I'm
God.
sure you have plenty of overtime for everybody, but do you have plenty of patrol overtime, or?
We have no patrol overtime.
So can they go into the jail and work?
Oh, yeah.
So they
use the staffing shortage.
They don't have a choice, I think. I think they get drafted because they're so short right now. You're asked to do a minimum number, last I heard.
We are decent right now, but yes,
What is
Well,
decent?
now that you've changed how it's kind of happened.
yes, so,
It used to be a flat rate, which wasn't fair.
no, it wasn't fair at all.
But now it's true time and a half.
So let's go back and talk about this, because here's a couple of things I see in your jailers, okay? We did a 2% vertical like everybody else on those. Your jailer start has a decent hour here, but if you look, by the time we get here, you're kind of, I don't know, a little lower. Let's go back and look at the comparisons. Correction officers. 23, average here is 25.
And when you finish this thought, I'd like us to discuss adjourning for lunch, but after this thought.
Time is it?
I don't want to, yeah,
12:30.
I know you're enjoying this.
I don't know about joy, but interesting.
So were you done with what you were doing?
Well, my question is, do we want to do a 2% spread for your jailers the same way? If you do, it's gonna make them way above market. That's what, because we try to start these guys a little higher than these averages here because you're having such an issue in this area.
Is everybody else 2%?
Well, just the patrol, and if we do patrol, why don't we look at doing all the patrols with the 2%, maybe look at the jailer with a little bit lower spread, because we try to start them higher. That's where we came with that 2350, we're trying to push them up at the beginning more than patrol.
Will there be any flack on that segregation?
If we do every jail position does a 1% cross board or whatever, and then your patrols does 2 for now?
I think they're getting such a significant bump to step one as you progress it out at the,
But we want to look at that 5 to 7 year window. We don't want them unhappy.
right.
When they want to leave, we want them the happiest.
Why don't we right now just start by moving it to 1%, because it's right now it's 0.894.
Yeah.
Move it to 1%
Mhm.
consistently, then each jail person have those 1%, and then the splits between the vertical, and then have all your patrols raising at 2% horizontal, and vertical, that way you can have all these nice horizons that make sense for promotions. Because if you don't, you're gonna have, let's see, look at what is your.
What was it? What was your category right above that one?
That was your patrol officers, they do
Okay.
2%. But we based that on Gallatin, this one, you've had such a turnover that we've actually, Gallatin don't have anything to base on, we've actually.
So it's corrections is where our problem is, right? I mean, that's the, and again, we're still looking at, we're setting ourselves up to not take care of corrections as much as we're taking care of.
But we loaded them on
Patrol.
the front end though, because right now we went to what we thought was market only rise 0.894, so I think raising it 1% here would make more sense.
See what it looks like?
0.894 is just, an odd number.
Definitely 1%.
That times 1.01, and then pull it across
How
2
many of your
years.
correction guys are leaving for patrol positions?
A few, yeah.
Pretty frequently.
No, we got rid of everything after 10, correct?
Or
Well, we got rid of everything.
I don't mean you specifically, I mean Gallatin. Is that what they've got their eyes set on at the end of the day?
Most of the time. I mean, not always. There's always the
How does it
anomaly
do your far
that
end?
wants to, you know what I mean? But yeah, typically people get into this line of
Two-ways
work.
patrol.
Let's see how that would work. So even these people over here that's been here a long time, like your 20-year person, should go from 2368 to 2570.
Mhm.
We're still gonna bump them, because you're already doing the 10 years and then the cost goes, but that would knock them to there for now. Be still a fair knock even for that one, a fair, not huge, but then these lower end, the further like 10, 25 to 22, so it's still $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. Should help. You said your big turnovers in this area right in here everywhere. So if you did that, then what would you want your, down to your sergeants to look like? Where's sergeants at?
And we were going to discuss lunchtime.
You wanna get the sergeant before we get a lunch, or?
Yes, right after the sergeant.
I don't figure we'd get done.
Whenever, this feels, like I said, when we started, this is a big project.
That's what it looks like. So your raise between there is 18%, and if we did that to make them consistent across again. So your sergeant here would be like a 3052, and your high sergeant's right there, so it would be all those sergeants would be definitely marketed up pretty well in your jail. Create a hopefully mobility from where you're at right now, pretty far.
What's the top of the step at that one currently?
We've got 3052 here. The only one we see the furthest one up is a 11-year person, 2788.
Which, that busts that, okay, yeah, that works.
So right now, that's the thing, you gotta create a desire to move up. Some more like kind of gallons. And then you've got your lieutenants in your jails.
Can we go, I just wanna look at that one a little bit longer. Sergeants in the jail.
I'm sorry, I told you I was quit after sergeant.
I know, that's why I'm not leaving the sergeant part.
You go and get the jail if you got lieutenants.
How many 10+ year sergeants you got?
And we're talking just in the jail or
Two that I can
patrol?
think of off the top of my head.
And did they not want to move up, or was there never an opportunity?
No, there's been opportunity. Sometimes they don't.
So, I mean, going 10 years on that's not really a big deal. man.
These
They
are,
just
I
choose
assume
not
that
to
these are great because they
Take that over
moved.
mobility, right?
Termed or moved positions.
Just generally
Yeah,
speaking.
that's what I assume.
Generally,
And when
yes.
I
I
see it
mean,
on the spreadsheet and it shows their
Typically,
names.
when you get promoted,
I
you
can
go
see
back
them
to the most
moving.
junior guy in that grade, you gotta go to midnights, and you have to make some concessions that are typically difficult to do, right? I mean,
And they choose to stay, okay.
There's 8 jail sergeants.
Or if there's asking how many over 2 years, I don't think there's 2.
yeah, I think there's only 2 over 10.
10 years.
If you look how compressed their salaries are,
1, 2,
2780 to 2783.
2?
3 cent difference in a whole year.
2 over 10 years.
Yeah, there's only a 3 cent difference in their hourly rate. If you look 2452 to 2445 with a 2-year difference. I mean, they're really compressed down. And that's what happened with the
There's
salary
3
survey.
months.
Difference
There's
in-
3 months between the higher rates.
Oh, one of those 2 over there. So they just slapped across years, but still, it's even a 3% raise would be 3 cents.
So we're saying, just so we see the actual numbers, at 10 years, we're saying 5415. Wait,
No,
no,
that's highway
where are we
patrol.
at? That's
Highway patrol.
highway
That'd be
patrol. I'm
52.
Let me
sorry.
delete that thing. That's what we were looking at. It didn't really compare out to jail, to say the least. We were just trying to get an idea.
How many people do you lose to highway patrol?
Lost 1 in recent memory.
They pick up the cream? Do they pick up the cream of your,
No, I wouldn't say they always pick up the cream of the crop. They do pick up the cream of the crop from our corrections division, the ones that have to go through the full academy. Again, there are concessions you have to make when you go from working for the sheriff's office to the highway patrol.
so their tenure is,
So you're talking almost $3 an hour, and they're working over 2,000 an hour, so what, about $5,800 maybe, I guess.
But if I take the $31, and I'm just multiplying it by the 2,080, whatever, I'm still,
2,184.
because of those extra.
Yeah, they have to work during a lot of lunches, so they pay.
I don't have the ARPA on here, but that's still a significant lift.
Well, the list you can see on the sheet, this is with ARPA in it here.
Where are you pointing?
The 2780 on the team and the 2780.
2780.
It'll be with ARPA and longevity and
But
everything.
I'm looking, yeah, that's the
Just
hourly.
under-
When I'm looking at the annualize, when I
It's just under
annualize,
6,000.
I'm looking here, if I take the 30.52 an hour and multiply it by the 2,184.
We can go over to this one because the hourly rates came when we combined ARPA into there. Is it a sergeant?
I did the 30.52 plus the 27.80.
We have this GT and the
So
whole
I just
thing.
took the 30.52, give them 2,184 hours. So I got 66,655,
The jail center.
right?
I didn't do it that way.
And then, but then if
I was just
I'm
giving
just
you
looking at
differences.
annual,
Yeah.
and then here's my budget for these sergeants.
But he's
There you go.
picking up.
Jail sergeant.
He's picking up
He's
the
picking up the
longevity
longevity.
and the ARPA.
Right,
And
they're
ARPA.
both picked up right here if you would.
So it's
And
not
that's usually
just-
somewhere
it's
around
not just
3,000.
this.
See, right here you go, here's an example. This one made
So that's at
56.
50. I'm still like,
Okay, this one right here is an example. This one made 56, received 3,200 more in ARPA, 975 in longevity, came out that pay. So then when you divide it by the number of hours and years to 2780, that's what we're comparing to.
Mhm.
But I think for costing,
So
we
it's
need to
about
pull
a
the,
$6,000
we need to pull the
raise.
longevity back out because it's gonna get confusing if we don't separate those out. So when we go back and cost it for you guys, we'll pull the longevity separate.
and that
when Eric gives them
would,
an
that would
hourly
lower,
rate-
but that's gonna lower the hourly rate if
Well,
you're
we're gonna
pulling
leave
it
the
out.
same rate in here, they're just gonna get that on. But they can advertise, you get longevity in there, which Gallatin, I'm sure is doing too, because it's who we're marketing to. And I'm sure Gallatin's advertising everything they're doing.
And more.
They got a brochure, I think. When they want the brochure,
They have a flyer now.
or a flyer or a brochure. So I'm sure they
And popsicles.
save this thing.
I make a motion that we consider a lunch break.
Oh, what did they-
Discussion
Recess
on-
for lunch to reconvene when?
Exactly, that's what I'd like to discuss.
I think we're
How much
15.
time everyone needs for lunch.
Is Court, do you want to be working and eating at the same time, or eating before you come back?
Well, we didn't order lunch.
Yeah, go ahead and get it right back, that's what I'm
Okay,
cook mine, or what do you want to do, 30, that way everybody come back and eat here?
I'm good
Keep
with that.
working? So
At
just
what time?
So,
120?
1:20? So I make a motion, we recess until 1:20? You got a
Cook my
second?
food and bring it back down here.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
I think we're making a lot of progress now. 122, I think we'll be done by 3:30.
Before animal control?
I think we'll be done by 3:30. We stick with the 2% risers and everything. Plus use the only thing I don't know about getting the, hey, Eric,